first story, we're going to talk about Chuck Wendig got fired from Marvel Star Wars projects. So this is crazy, man. Like the last episode of the Geek Culture Rundown that I recorded, at least I think it was the last one I recorded, is one of them. But I talked about Chuck Wendig got signed on with Marvel. It was announced in New York Comic-Con that he was working on a 5-part limited series centered around the death of Darth Vader. So somebody like posted on the Urban Acolyte Facebook page, like, man, any writer would be jumping at the opportunity to write Darth Vader. And I'm like, well, technically he's not writing Darth Vader. He's writing stories, short stories that are going to be in a comic book around people who are affected by the death of Vader. And one of those that I'm most interested in is the issue regarding the Acolytes of the Beyond. Now, if you aren't familiar with the Aftermath series, Aftermath is literally the aftermath of Return of the Jedi, right? All of the events after Return of the Jedi leading up to the Battle of Jakku, and Emperor Palpatine's contingency plan, and how the Imperial Remnant leave and go off into the unknown regions of space, and the First Order is birthed, right? And we kind of saw that too in Lost Stars. So it'd be interesting to read Lost Stars and the Aftermath trilogy and see how things kind of line up and shape up together, because you're getting the full story of the Galactic Rebellion told from Thane Kyrell and Sienna Ree's point of view. And then at the end, you do have like a mention of the ship that I guess the guy who stayed with the Empire, who was in love with Sienna, he's out there, you know, in these nebulous gases in space somewhere, right? And they're waiting on other parts of the Imperial Remnant fleet. They're hiding out and they're laying and waiting and deciding what's the next thing gonna do. So right there at the end of Lost Stars, you're getting like the first wave of the First Orders, like the first iteration of the First Order, I guess you call it, right? And Chuck Wendig gives us all of that, you know, from another point of view, from the point of view of what is his name? Isn't his name Greg Gunberg or something? Snap Wexley. You get introduced to Snap Wexley, who was in The Force Awakens. He's a member of Black Squadron, you know, Poe Dameron's X-Wing fighter crew that he's over, his homies. Actually, I got a idea for a video that it's gonna probably be in the next episode of the Geek Culture Rundown, because I got way too many stories to cover. But I want to talk about Black Squadron and something I saw in if you follow the Urban Acolyte page on Instagram and on Facebook, I think that there might be some kind of connection between Black Squadron and Star Wars Resistance. So you're going to have to tune in tomorrow, holler back at me because I think this might come up in Star Wars Episode 9. I'm saying all that based on an image that I saw from Star Wars Episode 9. But I'm not going to tell y'all about it right now. You just have to come back later. But anyway, we're talking about Chuck Wendig getting fired, and I'm getting all off on tangents talking about Aftermath. Basically, Chuck Wendig is so great at writing stuff about the aftermath of the events in Return of the Jedi that he's the perfect person to cover this material, right? And he got fired from I guess they're gonna bring in a writer to finish up the last 2 stories, and then he was working on another book with Marvel, another Star Wars Marvel project. He got fired from that too, and it was all around his political tweets, him clapping back at he caught a lot of hate. He had been catching hate from the first Aftermath book that a lot of people didn't like. So like I said, Chuck received a lot of hate from certain members of the Star Wars community, and I'm not even gonna say it's like the haters, right? I mean, like the guys on the Collider Jedi Council, they didn't like the first Aftermath book. I I'm going to say that out of the people that I follow within the community, the only people I knew at the time that liked Aftermath was probably myself, Alex, and maybe Molly if she read it. And I'm thinking it was probably just us three. And I'm not, I'm sure there were more. I'm talking about the people that I knew of in the community at that time, right? I didn't know who Jason Ward and these guys making Star Wars, the Star Wars News Net. Actually, I still don't know who runs Star Wars News Net. But like I said, not a lot of people liked the first Aftermath book. They didn't like the way it flowed, but then as things built up, and we got that second one, and I remember by the time Empire's End came out, I read Empire's End in like 2-3 days. Like I was just like, gotta get through it, right? And the second one, I read through it in like a week. Usually takes me months to finish books because I'll read and put it down, start reading something else. I'll be reading like 5 books at one time, right? So when Aftermath came out, I was hooked. But I mean, Chuck he's a very vocal dude. And as far as this whole thing about him getting fired, like I understand he said some things. He probably fell out with, I'm sure there was some business stuff that went on too. It's like you talk about politics, you talk about religion, you talk about these things. You don't have any filter when you go at people because they're coming at you. And it's like when you're playing with corporate America, sometimes you gotta be willing to accept. It's like, if I'm a shoot off at the mouth, I got to be willing to accept the consequences. I'm not saying I approve of it, and I'm not saying I'm against it. People run their business the way they want to run their business. And part of being an entrepreneur, part of being a business person, is that you have to be willing to accept. It's like, if this is my brand, and it's like I said, those of you watching the replay, I cut this part out because I was in the warm-up show, right? But I said, I mentioned that YouTube is starting to, some advertisers, they'll pull money out if you curse on your channel. And I drop, hey man, I don't give a what, right? And when I heard that, I was like, oh shoot, man, that's affecting, no wonder my money like went down on January 1st. Like there's the January drop off, but it usually comes back, and mine, like, it didn't come back till like now. And I'm like, wait a minute now, YouTube is not promoting me the way they used to. I'm like, I think I got to clean up some stuff. That and my friend, the Qigong goddess, she doesn't cuss. So I'm like, man, I got to clean up my language, not just on YouTube, but in general, right? Because, if she don't do that, then, I can't do that, right? And, she's making me better. And that's just one example is I got to start practicing right speech, and it might pay off in the long run, right? So as a business person, I have to make that decision. And when I decide, hey man, screw it, I'm going to say whatever, I got to be willing to accept what's going to come as a result of that, right? Same thing with Chuck, man. And here's the thing is, Chuck is fired from Marvel Star Wars projects. That I mean he can't keep writing for Star Wars. Lucasfilm loves him. That I mean he's not going to write another novel. It just means he's not going to write for these comic books. And hey, man, I like Chuck. I want to see the man get work. I thought, yeah, he did. He wrote the comic book iteration of The Force Awakens. Shout out to the big homie Chris Ryans who got this for me. Chuck Wendig wrote this one. Yeah, he wrote all of these, right? I don't actually collect comic books, but that's cool that the big homie Chris Ryans got that for me. But like, I like him in books. Like, that's cool what he did. I don't remember. I think he did The Last Jedi too. I haven't even read those. I need to. But I prefer him in novel form, in book form.
If you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and click on that subscribe button so that you can take your first steps towards becoming an urban acolyte. Embark on the journey of becoming the hero of your own story and become a force for change in your community. Make sure to check out more videos from this channel especially the one that YouTube has recommended for you. Anyway, that's all I got for this video. Thanks for watching. Y'all keep on breathing, and may the force of others be with you. Always.